What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing the experiences that some people have claimed to have had during near-death experiences when they claim to have visited hell. So I discussed near-death experiences in a previous video that was suggested by you guys, but in the first video I covered a mixture of both heaven and hell near-death experiences. In this video, I decided to cover just the experiences where people claim to have died or come very close to death, only to come back again claiming that instead of the beautifully brilliant white light and pearly gates, they saw something much more terrifying. They literally saw hell. I'm also going to be doing a video like this, but regarding heaven, so look out for that in the future. Being a Christian since I was born again on April 23rd, 2016, it absolutely terrifies me when I think of all the wrong I have done, and despite knowing the Bible and its promises very well, maybe somewhere deep in my heart, knowing that my slate is clean as my repentance and conversion were real, I still get this feeling of absolute dread when I read or even hear about these experiences and encounters of people going to hell. A lot of the time, most of the time in fact, people who have claimed to have visited hell during these near-death experiences totally turn their lives around after the encounter. I mentioned in the last video as well that, as weird as it sounds, I'm kind of jealous of people who have been able to have both the heaven and or the hell NDEs. I would obviously love to meet my Lord and Savior in any capacity. While I know he is always there with me and the peace he emanates toward me on a daily basis, I would still love to speak with him. I remember at the end of the day how well I know him, and I remind myself of the terror one must feel of not only almost dying, but going to hell, and thinking of all that unfinished business as well. Due to my interaction with spirits on a regular basis, I feel like I know a lot about unfinished business and what it can do to a person when they pass on. Would all of these entities that I encounter on a regular basis still be lurking around had they had one of these experiences first and learned to just let go, if they could really have seen with their own eyes where it is they're going to go afterwards? Maybe, but I guess I can add that to the list of things I'm most likely never going to know. So let's move on to 10 NDEs of the afterlife in hell. I know some of you may not believe in this stuff, but at the end of the day, just take it how you will. Take it with some healthy skepticism. Take it with a grain of salt. If you don't believe and you think it's absolutely silly, then just have some fun with it and get some fun information out of it, right? Number two is, these are not specific encounters, as in the ones being told by people who have experienced these things specifically. Like, it's not an account technically. They are a general overview of some of the more random and terrifying things a collection of people who have had NDEs and said they have gone to hell have said about their experiences there. So let's jump in then. So in many of the encounters I've come across of someone claiming that they had died and gone to hell during one of these near-death experiences we hear so much and at the same time yet know so little about, the person says they were brought to hell and somehow forced to sleep. I say somehow because it seemed like there was no purpose to it, but that could be because pretty much all of the people who have reported having this happen came back to life and were pulled out of this hellish nightmare before they could find out exactly what the purpose of the forced sleep state was. Let me explain. So there are many people who say that once they realized they were in hell, it was like something came over them and completely drained them of all of their energy. Like a zap, and poof, it was gone. They immediately went limp and fell over, and no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't keep their eyes open or stay awake. Many of them, though, claim that they did in fact try really hard, and they were catching glimpses of what was around them, and how absolutely terrifying and unlike anything we could ever put into words here with our limited vocabulary. That's how bad it was. So in this place, probably the last thing you want to do is go to sleep and leave yourself vulnerable, right? Maybe it's like those nightmares that we have where something absolutely terrifying is going on and we know that we're in a nightmare, so we try to wake ourselves up, but no matter what we do, we can't. And we just kind of have to deal with the fact that we're stuck in this horrific nightmare. That incredibly real panic that sets in when we come to the conclusion that we are going to have to endure whatever this is, whatever is going to happen in the nightmare of ours, until by chance we can open our eyes again and breathe a sigh of relief that we are no longer in our own personal hell while we are sleeping. Someone once said, quote, "We are all sentenced to a lifetime of solitary confinement in our own skin," end of quote. And I couldn't agree more, but at least I have control over myself when I'm awake. But at least I have full control over myself and have all of my faculties for the most part when I'm awake. And I can kind of reconcile myself to the fact that this is my life, and maybe to some life is actual hell, and maybe some of us refer to it figuratively. However, it really makes me wonder what the intent and purpose of the victim being asleep is for the demon who is most definitely putting them under. Think about that. A demon in hell is forcing you to sleep, and you will have no clue of or control over whatever it or its demonic friends are about to do to you. Remember too, I'm saying these experiences were likened to a nightmare like that, but they're actually happening to these people. These people aren't just having a nightmare where they're not going to feel or experience anything for real. Another kind of near-death experience that is widely reported from people who have claimed to have went to hell and come back, they said that they were falling through a kind of vortex. Now, most, if not all of us, have probably had that strange dream or nightmare where you're falling. Not the peaceful kind of drifting away. I'm talking about whether it be falling off your bed, falling out of an airplane, or just falling from somewhere that's really high up. And regardless of whether or not you are aware in this sleep state when you're falling from or where to, this experience can be absolutely alarming. I'm talking about that panic sinking, your heart drops to your feet kind of falling. Usually, at least in my experience, it ends with me jumping like this. And I believe that that's when the soul leaves your body when it's sleeping and you're waking up before it gets back, but that's a whole other video. Here's the thing though, it happens to me all of the time in a non-NDE capacity. I am constantly falling, I'm constantly panicked, my heart is constantly sinking into my feet, my guts, my guts just hurt. And I absolutely hate it. And as I said, it usually ends with me doing that big, huge jerk thing where you fly across the bed, but then you wake up. How many of you have had the terrifying falling feeling? Let me know in the comments. So back to the issue. These people are falling through a vortex. Not even just falling. It's been noted a lot of the time during these NDEs that some kind of force is pulling the person through walls or even through people to bring them to hell. They no longer have a choice to stay or go. They're going to hell for all of eternity and they have no decision in the matter. But this vortex complete free fall into hell is a little bit different than that, and let me tell you why. There's no force pulling them. They're simply in a helpless free fall. Again, there are similar experiences that have been reported of falling and trying unsuccessfully to grab onto something, but this again is not the case of what I'm talking about here, because there is nothing but air flying past you, possibly through you, and you're impending an eternal damnation at the bottom when you finally land. Oh my God, horrifying. When we hear about, and even just when we're randomly thinking about something like near-death experiences, what, am I the only one that randomly thinks of near-death experiences? Anyways, we often think of the ones where people go to heaven and are greeted by their long-lost loved ones, possibly some angels, and sometimes Jesus himself even makes an appearance. The overwhelming peace and freedom one feels when they make it through that tunnel to the beautiful light at the end. Hell, though, seems to spark much different images and much different circumstances when we think about it in our minds, right? The images conjured at the thought of entering heaven are almost universal, like the light, Jesus, the angels, long lost loved ones, which I totally believe in all that. Pearly gates, meeting God for your judgment, but knowing that you're in heaven anyway. When thinking of hell, though, there are so many variations, and it really depends on your experience, knowledge, what you believe to be true, and what you may be being told by someone claiming to have experienced it. And that'll shape what you see in your mind when contemplating, for whatever reason, what it's like to be in hell. In my personal opinion, the experiences of heaven and hell aren't uniform and vary greatly from person to person, especially the ones of hell, as I just said. So what about heat, Satan, demons, debauchery, fear, panic, a lake of fire? Something that's also reported a lot of the time by people who have had the hell NDE is the extreme heat they feel immediately upon entering the underrealm, or whatever you want to call it. Saying the word hell is getting a bit repetitive, and I'm not even halfway through the video yet. So anyways, many people have said that immediately upon approaching the gates of hell, the heat they felt was so extreme that their skin started to burn off, and the scent of burning flesh, not only theirs, was overwhelming and made them want to vomit. So here's the kicker though. The flesh burns off and you feel every single second of it. It's unimaginable pain. I don't even think the human language would have a word for how painful it is for your flesh to be searing off due to such extreme heat, while also feeling the terror of knowing that you're in hell for all eternity. You're going through all this and you're doing it only for it to happen over and over again, because the skin grows right back immediately upon the last piece of flesh being burnt off. Think about this one too while you're at it. This is happening only upon the approach of the gates, before you even enter. So let's move on to number 4. After entering the gates, at the start of the path you would be walking, it's very common for people to report that the roads are not actually roads like we have here made of pavement, but they're roads made of corpses, skulls, and bones of all sorts and sizes from all different parts of the body, and they stretch as far as the eye can see, and you have to walk on them. There's no avoiding it, and all the while your skin is still on fire. Most of the time it's reported that at this point it's just a little singeing compared to the searing of it that you immediately felt, but still, you're still experiencing the after pain of your skin being burnt off and grown back multiple times. Again, though, these experiences do vary greatly depending upon the retelling. Everyone's experience is going to be different, even if they actually experience the exact same thing. And remember, these are just some of the things that are commonly reported when someone experiences hell, allegedly. It's absolutely bone-chilling. No pun intended. So presumably you'd maybe have some relief at this point, because at least your skin isn't being burned off your skeleton anymore. But now you're faced with a whole new horror, as the road to your next inevitable torture is paved with dead bodies. Luckily, in this case, in this scenario, it's just the bones and not actually decaying flesh, where you can actually see that these were once people, which also has been reported, but that's not reported. That's not very common, but I have seen it here and there that people have said that was their experience. The bones crack and crackle underneath your feet. I get chills just thinking about it, and it reminds me of when I step on like an extra crunchy ant and you just get that like feeling. No thanks. Sorry guys, I had to switch the light and I forgot to use my mic. So anyway, we're at the 5th and halfway mark of the 10 most commonly reported experiences of near-death regarding visits to hell. I often wonder if Satan and or his minions know that the person is just visiting, and whether they tone down or amp up the terror as necessary. It reminds me of something I heard, and I was going to say a joke, but it's not quite funny. I don't know, maybe it is a joke to some people. But so this guy had passed away, and he went to heaven and saw all of his deceased loved ones, and it was great, and it was really peaceful. It was everything that you can imagine when you imagine heaven, right? But then he was given the opportunity to see hell, and he had to choose which afterlife for all of eternity he wanted. So the guy goes to hell, and people are partying and doing drugs and drinking, having all kinds of sex, and everything was a free-for-all. Satan was like high-fiving people. Everything was amazing. And this guy was like, yes, these are my peoples. So he chooses to spend all of eternity in hell. So when he goes the next day, because he had one day to make the decision, he goes to hell, and it's nothing but torture. Satan is torturing people. Demons are everywhere. His skin's burning off, all of these things he's experiencing. And he's like, hey, what happened? Like, you tricked me. And the devil was like, yesterday you were a prospect. Today you're a member. And I always think of that. It's a little creepy to say that it's a joke, because at the end of the day, it's not funny. I often wonder if it's true. I really think it is. I think it is like that. I'm not sure of if they tone it down or amp it up, but I know for absolute certain that I never want to find out. When I talk about being jealous of people who have had near-death experiences, let me just clarify that I meant the people who have had them like straight out of nowhere when just going about their normal day. Possibly one of the stress-induced ones, which heaven knows that that's probably one that I would have. And yeah, that's actually pretty common for that to happen, is that people are so incredibly stressed out or traumatized or whatever that they like that go into a near-death experience, usually of heaven, but not all of the time. Think about that for a minute. You don't even have to be near death to have a near-death experience. All right, so moving on, we're still on number 5, sorry. Some people claiming to have visited hell report seeing other damned souls who are wandering just as aimlessly around as they are, but the difference is these other souls are missing one very important part of their body, their heads. A bunch of headless, damned, tortured, doomed souls wandering aimlessly around you with no head. Oh my God. No heads means no faces either. And that's absolutely, I keep saying terrifying, horrifying. I don't even know if there's a word, again, in the English language that we could possibly use to describe these types of things. So far, if you're in this visit to hell, you've most likely had your skin burned off and regrown just to be burned off again multiple times. And you've had to feel every single minute of it. And once you finally get a little relief, at least physically, because mentally and emotionally you're probably a wreck, right? You have to walk along other people's dead bodies and their bones and break them underneath your feet, only to have the next thing to be you finally see other people, but they're damned souls wandering around, they're missing their heads. They're aimlessly wandering, they're under extreme duress, but without a head to be able to have a face and features to call out to anybody for help. Not that any would be given, because by this time it's too late for that. It's widely reported too, however, that when in this situation, you can actually feel all of the terrible things these headless souls are feeling. All at once, you are just bombarded with every single one of them, and there are countless, and all of their feelings and regrets, all of their mental and physical pain. It's like being an empath, not like the modern version of empath where you're just empathetic. I'm talking about us real empaths. You in this community know exactly what I'm talking about. I could name like 50 of you right now, right, that are watching this video that are actually empathic. When you walk into a nursing home to spend some time with your great grandma or your grandma, and you're talking to other elderly people, or you go into hospice, they're energy vampires, they drain you. Can you imagine that, but on an unimaginable scale? And the energy you're getting is doomed soul with no head, aimlessly wandering around to be tortured and damned for all eternity. Hell no. It would be like just a ball of psychic energy engulfing you, so there's no way out of it, and all you can do is continue to walk, because there's no interaction between anyone in hell, except maybe the demons and the one they're torturing. I've never heard of a near-death experience where someone was able to interact with another person ever in hell. There's also no help in hell, and who knows how long these poor souls are doomed to wander in this horrific and terrifying existence. Though if I were to wager a guess, I'd say it'd be for all eternity. Now, I don't want to start a religious debate, but I want to say that I am one of these people who do believe in not so much purgatory, but a waiting place for people who have repented, but have done some pretty bad things and do need to be punished for it. But at the end of the day, they know that they're going to heaven, so it's all right. So help is on the way. I believe, in my opinion, again, I don't want to start any kind of debate or piss anyone off, but this is my opinion, that that's one of the circles of hell. I think it's the least torturous. I think Satan pretty much leaves those people alone because they do belong to God. They're just kind of carrying out their sentence. Like, in what I believe, I keep saying in my opinion because I don't want anyone to get angry because of this. What I believe is that if you're like a murderer, a serial killer, and at the end of your life, you truly repent, you truly are remorseful, I believe that anyone who is truly remorseful and truly repents is forgiven, even if they do it in the last seconds of their life. I'm not saying you could just be like, yeah, sorry God, and then you go to heaven. But I do believe that you go to a waiting place. You probably have to wait for maybe thousands of years because time is different. Their scale of time up there and down there is very different from ours. But at least at the end of the day, you know that you're going home, you're going to heaven. So I'll move on. One more thing about this. It seems that the worst of it so far was upon entering. Not that all of it isn't absolutely unimaginable and excruciating, both on a physical and mental level. but it feels like maybe it might depend on your sins. It probably depends on a lot of factors we may never know until it's our time, and hopefully we won't ever find out because we won't be going to hell. Moving right along to number 6. Imagine walking down to check out what that creepy noise coming from your basement is at 3 in the morning when it's pitch black and you've got nothing but a flashlight because the lights down in the basement don't work either. Now imagine that while you're down there searching for this unexplained noise, a rat suddenly falls off the ceiling and directly into your hair. How would you react? Well, just having to wander down there in the dark would be enough to get me whispering almost silent prayers to myself and possibly even talking out loud, trying to calm myself down or explain away the noise. However, the scream of absolute terror, disgust, and sickening panic and fear I would feel at a rat falling onto me would be unrivaled and could possibly cause my neighbors to call the police. What's my point? Well, the 6th most common reported occurrence when someone visits hell during a near-death experience is being unable to talk, call out, scream, or even whisper. What I just described to you is probably one of the biggest fears that I have. I do have a very bad fear, sometimes very irrational, of rodents, rats specifically. I can't even say rodents, rats specifically. I'm just absolutely terrified of them. And this would be the worst thing for me. I mean, this is nothing compared to what's going on in hell. I'm just trying to give you an earthly example of what might be as terrifying to me. That would be the worst possible thing that I can experience on earth, physically. You know, that would be one of the most horrific and disgusting things that could ever happen to me here on earth. It seems you have absolutely no voice at all. So think about the previous 5 things I've talked about in this video so far and imagine now how it would feel to have to suffer through all of it in absolute silence. I've said it already a couple of times now, but I'm absolutely sure this might be the most dreadful one yet. It's like they keep getting worse and worse. Screaming and nothing coming out, especially during the rest of the torture mentioned in this list. There's something mentioned along with this inability to vocalize even a whisper while in hell though, and that's uncontrollable fear. I think that's a given though, considering, as I just said, the rest of the events happening during these trips and what someone has already endured according to this list. Not being able to scream, talk, call out. Have you ever heard or even used an expression stating you or someone else was so pissed off or so angry that it looked like their head was literally going to explode, or they were so angry and pissed that steam or smoke was coming out of their ears? You know, they were about to blow, they were about to explode, right? That's what I thought about when I came across number 7 on our list here. However you would have worded it, I think pretty much all of us would have either said and or heard something like this in the past. I hope that's what I'm trying to get my point across here. I might even remember an expression about seeing smoke coming out of someone's ears, as I just said. Not literally, of course. Well, this is how angry and enraged people claim to have gotten out of seemingly nothing at all during their trip to hell. And this is very, very common with demonic possession. Right as the demon's starting to invade you, while it's not fully inside you yet, it starts to randomly take you over at random times. You never know when it's going to happen. And you have this uncontrollable, unimaginable, nothing like a real human can even feel, this kind of deep, deep rage. This also reminds me of a series that I'm working on that I'm hoping to have out this fall on demonic possession. It's been crazy. I have to like surround myself in light before I even do any research on that. So it's taken me a long time to get through. It's draining. I feel like sometimes things like that, you call them to you, and I have to be super duper careful because I'm so in touch with spirit, or spirit wants to be around me all the time, talking in my ear. It's very hard to turn that off. But the evil, investigating the evil, Steve says it every live stream, when you stare into the abyss will stare back at you, or something to that effect. And that's definitely what I'm talking about here. One of the main ways demonic possessions start to show themselves, or in cases of a mild possession, one of the main displays of the demon is exactly this. Some kind of intense anger or rage that many of us feel very seldom in an entire lifetime, if we're even capable of feeling something like this. It's overwhelming and constant from the minute you arrive in Satan's den, right at those gates. Also, the hatred. I could be being naive, but as I always say, I can only go by my own experiences. But I've never felt really any, if not much, hatred for another human being, let alone hatred that completely takes me over and makes me unable to think clearly. I guess I'm lucky in that way. I've heard so many times of women or men attacking family members out of nowhere. They just have this extreme rage that boils up in them, usually upon moving into a new house, especially during renovations. You can stir something up, and that's how it starts. I can't wait to get this video series on demonic possession out to you guys, because there are some things we need to know. The mild forms of possession happen in people every single day, walking around you, possibly living with you, possibly yourself. And I think we all need to be educated on that, myself included. So I'm looking forward to bringing you guys that series. Nothing would be able to calm you down. It seems as it's just as irrational as most things that are going on down there in hell. And not that there would be anyone to try and calm you down or reason with you anyways, but another scary thing is you wouldn't be able to calm yourself either. And that's the irrational part of it. So moving on to begging to be spared or being returned back to earth or life, I think it would be a natural human instinct to want to not be in hell, obviously, especially as it's been described by people who have been there and who have come back to tell the tale. It seems, though, a great many of them have reported that their begging and pleading for another chance went either unnoticed by the demons surrounding them, or it seemed to egg them on somehow and make the torture they were inflicting that much worse. They seem to get some kind of sick and evil joy out of watching humans begging for their lives and that second chance. It had no effect on them whatsoever, however, besides the aforementioned evil glee, and the people were forced to continue enduring the tortures and horrors of hell nonetheless, sometimes to an even higher and more painful and torturous degree than before they started the pathetic pleading. Remember, the devil and his demons hate us. They hate us with a hatred and rage we as humans can never possibly understand and weren't built to feel. It makes sense that they would get a rise out of this and be spurred on to be even more diligent in their abuses toward us and our immortal souls. Does that make sense? Almost done here. Moving on to number 9. Have you ever forgotten to take the trash out of the trunk of your car for a few days? Remember the smell? While it's well known to those who study these types of things, or those who have been unfortunate enough to have ever encountered a demonic entity or even Satan himself here on earth, there is an indescribably putrid smell that you cannot escape in hell. Homicide detectives or people who are familiar with the scent of dead bodies and decomposition say that this is as bad as it gets, and it's something that kind of lingers in your nose and even sometimes your mouth, like you can taste it for days at a time once you get just a tiny whiff of it. The rotten egg / sulfur smell that always accompanies a demon visiting us here on earth is nothing compared to how that smell engulfs you when you're in hell. Think about it. If a person has too many cats and doesn't clean their house or litter box properly, they won't be able to get the stink out of their clothes after a while. No matter what they do, after a time, it's kind of just in their skin at that point. And just an FYI, the same smell is said in many cases to accompany the black-eyed kids wherever they show up as well. Number 10, the bright lights. While I found 20 of the most commonly reported things from people who have said to have experienced hell and then been brought back, I gave you 10 in this video so there's room for a sequel. The most commonly reported thing from people who have had these NDEs was the bright light. After previewing all of the horror and torture and sadism, etc., it seems the most commonly reported way out of hell is the eventual sight of a bright, almost blinding light coming from somewhere in the distance. The people reportedly experienced knowing instinctively that this was God coming to rescue them. Not only are they randomly just snatched up and taken into this light, they are usually told by an unfamiliar yet angelic voice that it isn't yet their time. Thank your lucky stars for that one, huh? Getting a reprieve from a godless entity in hell must be quite a relief. Understatement of the century? Sometimes the people that are taken into this bright light are told they have more work to do, more lessons to learn. Others are left with a warning to do and be a better person, to do better things and be a better person, to change their ways and take advantage of this rare opportunity to change their whole afterlife, to change the fate of their immortal souls for all of eternity. Others who reported seeing this light say that one minute they're snatched up into the light, the next minute they're back to the last place that they remember being, or in other cases still a hospital bed. Regardless of how they get back, I'm sure the word relief doesn't even come close to describing their feelings at that moment. Knowing that that could have been it for all of eternity, they're being given another chance. Keep in mind, many people who report having these encounters report having one or even all of the experiences mentioned on this list. It can be a mix and match. Someone could have, you know, the first 3 I mentioned and the 10th one. I mean, it's all a matter of experience. These are just 10 of the 20 that I found most commonly reported. And the bright light was number 1 out of all of the 20. I try to find the commonalities in most, if not all, of these lists and then report them back to you, kind of like an average type thing. Remember, if you don't know for sure where you're going in the afterlife, that's probably a good sign you should start making some better choices and positive changes. Some of us have to learn the hard way though. I'm one of those people, but gambling with all of eternity, gambling with my soul probably is the dumbest thing a human being can do, in my opinion, allegedly. Come for me if you want. Sin your little heart out if that's what you want to do. I'm not one to judge. Well, that's all I have for you today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It is kind of a part 2 to the NDEs. That's what I'm going to label it. If you enjoyed it, stay tuned for the 3rd part, as this is one of my series. There's going to be a part 2 on the white-eyed kids. A part 2, I just released 1.5. I had to do a 1.5 on the shadow people because there's so much there, but there will be an actual part 2 coming soon. Staircases in the woods. I mean, all of this great content that I have coming out that you guys have suggested. I also have a couple deep dives into some true crime cases that you guys have suggested, and listener stories are definitely coming. I have so many short fiction stories, your paranormal encounters, anything you want to send me, just send it along. GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. A lot of you are still trying to send an email to GemmaJadeYT@gmail.com. That is a dead email account. Guys, if you enjoyed hanging out with me, coming, listening to this, if you like these kinds of videos, this kind of information, please give this video a big thumbs up. Big thumbs up. Spread the love, share this video, subscribe if you haven't already. Please also be sure to check out the description box for some really important links. I'm going to put a link each at least to the 3 live streams that Steve Stockton and I do throughout the week. Sunday, Fireside Chat on Missing Persons and Mysteries. Wednesday, Real Evil on Dezombified. And Friday, Campfire Stories on Missing Persons and Mysteries. I hope you guys will enjoy that. Click those links, subscribe, give the videos thumbs up. Also, Justice for Caleb Smith. I always put the link to the 2-hour live stream we did, Steve Stockton and I, with Caleb Smith's mother, April Arrington. If you want to get familiar with that case, I suggest you watch that live stream. Also, something happened in that live stream that was like a spiritual movement. Many people said it, religious and non-religious. It was all over the chat. It actually went through YouTube. Like, so many people were emailing me, like other creators, like, oh my gosh, I heard what happened in the chat. So it's pretty awesome. Please check that out. I'll leave the link for that too. And also PayPal and Patreon for donations to the channel. Guys, thank you so much. I love and appreciate all of you and the constant and unending support that you give me on a daily basis. Reach out if you need anything. Don't forget, new email, GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. Have your best day. Have your best night. Be kind to each other. It doesn't cost anything and can gain you so much and make you feel so good. No more masks. Smile at a stranger. I gotta stop hitting my mic. Always go in grace. See you guys next time. Mwah. Bye-bye.